Emotions don't exist in time. People will say like, well, I don't need to deal with that because that happened a long time ago. Well, it may have happened a long time ago, but what we're going to find out is if you still have unprocessed emotions about it, because emotions only exist in the present moment.
It starts right here, deep in your heart. Start right here. Oh, that's where it starts. Right here. We look to your heart. It's always and only starting right here.
Tom Rutledge and Dr. Alan Berger bring over 90 years of clinical experience to this important podcast, and they offer you a guarantee. You will gain something of personal value from each episode. And now, what matters most.
It starts right here. Start right here.
Start right here. That's where we're always starting. As far as I know, that's where we've always been starting. And I'm Tom Rutledge, and welcome back to our. What episode is this anyway, Patrick? How many episodes have we done?
Nearing our 40th episode. This will be number 38. So,
that explains why I'm feeling a little stiff. Yeah, okay, got it. Yeah, getting old. It's and there's Patrick Newman, our wonderful producer, and with me as always, Dr. Alan Berger. How you doing, Alan?
Well, I'm doing great, and I'm very excited about how we're going to be evolving this podcast in a couple more. Maybe on our 40th we'll change. Maybe that could be a goal for us. Is I like even numbers like that.
Yeah.
So maybe one more start right here,
or we need to do 40 and then
40, and then 41 we start the new one. Let's do that. So there's going to be two more start right here. And then we are going to pivot. Tom and I and Patrick have been talking, and the real buzz right now is this emotional sobriety issue. And,
Alan, that's not, no. It's not the real buzz. It's what you do. It's what you have brought. I mean, this is your, I mean, I'm not suggesting this is all there is to your life's work, but this is in one way your life's work. I look at your therapy, your books, all this other stuff. I have been happily discovering along the way is joining you with this since the COVID thing began, and we've been spending so damn much quality time, together. It's that close to everything I've written also fits into this subject matter. It's like, but I didn't think of it in those terms. But you are the person who tuned in, who zoned into. I have a cat that is just driving me crazy here. It's to Bill Wilson's Emotional Sobriety. And I pointed out to you recently, I think that as far as I know, when Bill Wilson was coming up with emotional sobriety and beginning to write about it, you were being born. And I have a theory that you and Bill are working together, have been working together in some other realm about this. But in all seriousness, this is not just a buzz. This is what you have done, and because we've been doing the Thursday night, you've been doing the Thursday night group, and had Patrick and I join you with that. It's like there's just been more and more and more interest in this, and people just really tune into this emotional sobriety thing because it is the healing below whatever ails you. It's like
I like what you said that one day when we were talking with Vince and who were writing the other book with emotional sobriety one day at a time. He said it's dependency underneath the dependency.
It is. It's yeah.
That was so well articulated. So and think
about it. So anyway, that's I just jumped in there on that, but it's like it's more than a buzz. It's something that is and it's like. It's something that you have been working really hard. You've been working your ass off to bring this idea and these concepts, not just the term, but the concepts to the rest of literally the rest of the world as your Thursday group is become so international lately. So it's a big emotional sobriety is it's a big deal. And you deserve a lot of credit for bringing it out and helping all the rest of us look at it and focus on it and
Well,
learn about it.
I appreciate that, Tom, and I don't want to in any way ever understate the role that you and also Patrick, but I would just want to start with you, that you've played in this thing, played in this whole bringing this forward in the degree that we have together. I mean, I've always done this, but there's something that you've brought to this. It's back to that thing about it's a synergistic relationship, right?
Yeah.
That you know, I bring out the best in you, you bring out the best in me. And that's what I think is happening on that Thursday night. Look, we started with 20 people. When we first had that Thursday night emotional sobriety meeting, we had 20 folks show up. And we were happy that we had 20. We were wondering if we were going to get anybody. And 20 is now turned into, last week again, we hit 200. And they're coming from all over the world. We got people coming from Europe. We got people coming from Australia. I mean, the United Kingdom.
And I also want to just a shout out to those people who are listening to our podcast, that it's I bitch about the fact that you have your meeting at 7 p.m. on Thursday, and it's 9 p.m. on for me. It's like, so I've been complaining to you about that from the beginning. These people in Australia, it's a different day. It's already tomorrow there, which is I've been working on that a long time, trying to figure that out. But in Europe, I think they're up in the middle of the night. But these people go to great lengths to be able to join us, and it's that I really do not ever take that for granted. But I agree with you. I think in some ways you and Patrick and I and some others who sit in with us, we're a good band.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like, I think we do. I use that metaphor, not being a musician, but I'm going like, that we do our solo stuff, but we really do work well together.
That's
and
right.
I like the sound we make.
I agree with that. And Patrick, you're a part of this too, because if it wasn't for your efforts at recording us and editing us and getting this stuff posted, that the word wouldn't be out there, and we wouldn't have, some of our shows have had already 2,400 listeners, in terms of the emotional sobriety stuff. And it's going to just continue to grow and grow. And so, Patrick, I also don't want to in any way not recognize the contribution you've made to that.
Well, and I'll toss it. The other piece is as we're giving some credit to each other here, it's and one of the things I think we really turned a corner when you, Alan, said to Patrick one time early on in the podcast is, just chime in, be a part of the discussion. And I really consider Patrick a part of every one of our discussions. And I think that he and it's not just age, but truly the fact that he is significantly younger than us. He does bring a different perspective to things than we have. And I appreciate that.
Patrick, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, how about now?
We just complimented you and all of your technological stuff, and you can't turn your microphone
I immediately,
on.
slipped into the phantom zone. Yeah, no, but I was going to, say thank you for the kind words, and then also in regards to the Thursday night meetings, it's just inspiring to see the lengths that people will go to stop feeling sick. Because I recognize that impulse in myself. I mean, it's what among the reasons high on the list of reasons of why I do the show with you guys every Sunday. It all contributes to the, long recovery after a period of being away for a while. So
one of the things I've always said about doing this for a living is that, while being a therapist or being somebody who's a presenter, or in this case, do the podcast and that kind of stuff, is never a substitute for doing your own work, your own therapy. We do have this wonderful advantage of being in this stuff all the time. One of the things I think in terms of if there's such a thing as reincarnation, I must have just been so screwed up for so long that God just decided to make me a therapist to see if I might start catching on. And it took a while, but it really is a wonderful thing to be able to be a part of all of this on a daily basis. And it makes it damn hard to forget what it is we're supposed to be doing for our own recovery. It's no guarantee that we do it, but it's a constant reminder.
Yep, that's right. Well, look, as we have two more shows left, one of the themes that's been coming up with a lot of the people I've been working with lately, and we even hear it on Thursday night, is how do we take care of unfinished business from the past?
Yeah.
How do we deal with these feelings, with these resentments, with these wounds, with the trauma that we've experienced at some point previously in our life? And I thought that you and I could have started dialogue with it tonight. Maybe we'll be continuing it next time. But, what are some of the ideas we have about that, and what makes that such an important thing? How can people start to address these things so that they can get some freedom out of it? I mean, I still share with people all the time, Tom, one of your nutshell wisdoms is, it's important sometimes to go in the past and to learn as much as we can from it. And then I love your little encouragement, and then get the hell out of there.
Yeah. Learn from the past and get the hell out of there. Yeah. That was, I originally, before it was edited, it was get the holy fucking hell out of there.
Yeah.
But it was like fast.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the dilemmas is that you can get lost in there, and it's very important. And that's also one of those places where, as you refer to and sometimes working the steps, but also just in the whole process, it's so important for us to have enlightened witnesses for us and guides and things like that. And that's one of the and I'm not saying we can't do some work looking back at our past, exploring, investigating our past, and freeing ourselves from that on our own with good books and workbooks and things like that, or listen to the podcast. But it really helps to have somebody or I always believe in people should have depth on the bench, that there should be more than one person, but to somebody to guide you through a lot of that stuff. Because when you get back into the past where that original programming was put together and originally installed, it's treacherous territory.
Yes. It's quite treacherous, and there's a lot of stuff that can come up. Right.
Yeah,
and stuff that can come up.
Well, and this is one of the things that's come up with some folks with me recently is and it's always, but I've been talking about it the last couple of weeks with one client in particular, is that we'll say, well, I shouldn't have to deal with that because I know that's bullshit, because it's from our past. But it's like when I tell people, it's like, look, the people we work with, our logic is not broken. Our practical thinking is not broken. It's like, it is the unconscious belief systems that are held over from the past that create the problems. The question I give clients a lot of times that first confuses them, but then it brings about quite a lot of enlightenment, is not only make a list, but keep a list. Start a list of things that I know are not true, that I absolutely believe, that, and people go, what does that mean? Well, it's like that's what that programming is. That's the stuff that little kid inside of us learned to believe, because we weren't questioning anything back in those days. We were just absorbing what was in our environment.
No, that's right on, man. And the first thought I have in terms of, what can we do? How can we start to give people a perspective of this? Is that, you and I are very much present-oriented therapists, that we really like to focus on what somebody is doing in the here and now. And we see the present moment as the place that somebody can make change, that somebody can now learn some new ways by becoming aware of things they're doing, and also by exploring and discovering new possibilities.
Well, it's the only place, but you said it's the only place we can make change.
That's right. That's our belief. It's the only place that you can make change is in the now. And, and I've seen that in the work, and when we've worked and done demonstrations with clients that you do. And, so people come up with, well, then if right now is all there really is, right, in terms of my working, then what do I do with the past? And, I know the work I do, and I've seen you do it, is we bring the past to the present, is that we invite people now to, if let's say it, for me, when my dad died in 1971, when I went to this weekend marathon workshop in the midst of all of that great human potential movement.
Yeah.
And, and I was talking about the therapist did this today. I consider it such a basic exercise, a group exercise. He says, I want everybody to close your eyes and think of somebody you need to say goodbye to. It's real basic group therapy 101, right? It's kind of, and of course, at that point in time, I hadn't dealt with any of my feelings towards my dad and the loss and the grief and the very, very complicated loss. It was quite a traumatic loss. What I know today is that when you lose someone, there's a certain amount of grief associated with that under natural conditions. But when you lose someone under conditions that have a trauma associated, someone's murdered, they're dying of cancer or some other horrible illness, or there's a sudden car accident or a surgery goes wrong, situations like that. Now, in addition to the grief, you've got a trauma attached to the grief. And so now that becomes a complicated bereavement, right? It's not your typical, just grieving process. My grandfather passed away 95, for example. I'm sad. I'm going to miss him. He's been a part of my life. But my grandfather's 45. He got ran over by a bus. Now that's a whole different deal. You're dealing with the trauma of losing someone under what these are is horrendous conditions, in addition to the loss that you're experiencing. So the guy goes and says, well, who do you, think of someone you need to say goodbye to. So my dad died in 1963. It was my father. And as soon as I said to him, well, I lost my dad in 63 and I've never said goodbye to him. What did he do? He threw a pillow in front of me. He says, okay, your dad's with us now. Say goodbye. He brought the past to the present. Right in that moment.
He's shown, now I'm just picking at language here, but he's shown the light that you had brought the past to the present, because emotions don't exist in time. It's like if we actually have, people will say like, well, I don't need to deal with that because that happened a long time ago. Well, it may have happened a long time ago, but what we're going to find out is if you still have unprocessed emotions about it, because emotions only exist in the present moment. And so you can look at, I draw little timelines out and say, okay, well, this may have happened back in, this year, but it's like the emotion, because of course, I'm sure what happened to you at that point, which is like you said, such a simple thing, and something as a therapist, it's all, when I hear you say that, I got to remember that too, that sometimes the simplest things we say are going to have a profound impact on somebody because they haven't done this before. We take it for granted. We do it all the time. But the idea, and I'm sure the moment that pillow got in front of you, yeah, I'm watching your face now. Your world changed.
Oh my! And
that's all he had to do.
And what you're saying, at that point when I said that, I did not have the awareness that I was bringing the past to the present.
Yeah, you didn't know it was
here. I thought I was talking about the past.
Yeah, you thought it was back there.
But so it was very interesting, because as soon as that pillow got put in front of me, now I was aware that the past was very much present.
Yeah.
And it was all that was present. And now there was a whole, today I think of it as almost an imperative. The experiences I had wanted resolution. What was going on inside of me, I wanted to find some closure, and holding that stuff off and pushing it aside to, at the end of that, I realized how much energy I had expended to repressing those feelings,
holding it out. Yeah. Well, for instance, what did you feel in your body the moment? Do you remember? I'm sure you do remember the moment the pillow was in front of you. Where did you feel in your body?
What happened? My chest opened up.
Yeah. Every time you've heard you talk about that, you touch your chest. Your hands go like magnets immediately to your chest. Yeah.
It just opened up, and all of a sudden these words, and I mean, it was really weird. I mean, in some sense, I was having an exorcist moment where all of these things were coming through me
Mhm.
that I didn't even realize. This is how out of touch I was with myself.
Mhm.
You know, how I put myself to sleep is the way I think of it now. I put myself
Yeah,
in a trance
yeah.
to not feel any of these things. And all of a sudden, these words that were so connected to so much
Mhm.
pain and so much suffering, and then anger and loss and all kinds of things just started to, it was like the floodgates got opened.
My experience with that, Alan, is I went to do you know Bedford Combs?
We've
Bed,
talked about Bedford many times.
I went to Bedford's. Bedford trained with Sharon Wegsider Cruz, and so he had his own week-long codependency program back in the '80s, and so there I go off to that, thinking that I was going to a workshop to learn how to teach clients how to beat pillows with a bat. That's kind of my thinking about that. So it was. We did this visualization about inner child, and then which was bizarre for me and very I'll tell about it some other time, when we talk about inner child. But it's so I'm sitting there minding my own business, which is the way I like to start stories. There I was minding my own business, and we were beginning the week, and he says, after this visualization, would anyone like to work? And I said, well, me, I would. As I thought, this sounds great. And so I sat up there, and it's like, I mean, I swear to you, within 20 minutes, I'm in the fetal position, sobbing, snot everywhere. I mean, I was, the same thing you're talking about. Once they were there, and that was that process, and everybody has their own way, but it really is, like, I think of is what we're doing is we're shining a light on what is already there. You had kept the light focused where you didn't have to see. We had our blinders on, but it's like the same thing you're talking about. It's like I couldn't speak, because all of this stuff was all there all at once. I thought it was there all at once, and what I've learned since then, of course, is it's always was there. It'd been with me the whole time. That was why, for one thing, life had been so. I was not traveling light.
I've been trying to clean the wreckage of my past as best I can, but it's very clumsy. I found it to be a very clumsy and messy experience. And, I suppose the most powerful amends I made is I sat down in front of a former/current employer and apologized for, being under the influence for a lot of the time I was working, and stealing medication from my boss, and just the utter shame. And I had to read off of a printed statement, and I was just kind of huddled over it like a crab, just doing my best to not falter in
You're just trying to get through it. Yeah.
and owning my bullshit. And I think I could definitely feel my heart growing a size having gone through that, and still standing on the other side. But there's still a lot of unresolved things and pain, and I think I just want to remain open to to dealing with that as whenever opportunities present themselves, seizing those opportunities. And
Well, Patrick, you make a really good point that I think is important for people who are looking at doing this kind of work. Is that back in the day when Alan and I first went and did this stuff? I don't know about you, Alan, but I think we were pretty delusional, and I really do believe that me, my wife, our group of friends who were mostly therapists who were doing all this work, really thought that what we were doing was going in and cleaning all this stuff up and having these amazing, wonderful, intense experiences that were in some ways, adrenaline highs from these groups and stuff we were doing, and that we thought I think we really thought that we were just going to be just different after that. That it was sort of like cleaning your closet and staying clean. it's like but it was the beginning, and I I appreciate your speaking, Patrick, to the idea that this is an ongoing process. It's like the truth is, I mean, I'm 67 years old. It's like, I would not claim that I'm anywhere, I learned a long time ago, don't dust your hands off. Don't sit there and think, well, I'm so glad I took care of that stuff. Because it's going to keep going. It's like, and I think it's important if we're talking to people who are interested in doing the work, is settle in and understand that it's a marathon
Yes.
or a triathlon or whatever. It's like the idea is you're not going to go in and have to do it all. We have this thing, we're supposed to go in and get it finished and fixed up. It's like, no, you're starting things. You're just starting conversations. You're just beginning to learn about things like that. You're expanding, and it's an ongoing thing, and it coexists. And this is an important point I want to be sure we make while we're talking about dealing with the wreckage of our past and trying to recover from that stuff, is we can still do the present tense work that Alan was talking about a minute ago, because that's where the change still happens, and we can come and go from our past. We do not, or when we say past, we've established it's not the past. We can come and go from dealing with our history, and the history is always going to inform how we treat ourselves now, how we interpret the world now. That's what, and most importantly, in my opinion, that's why history is important. It's to help explain. It's explanation, not excuse, and it's explanation, and it's not, it doesn't all by itself. Just the concept of understanding what happened to us, doesn't change anything, but it gives us an opportunity to become self-compassionate, where we could actually respond. And that's what inner child work's all about. That's why people are so surprised that, when they say, but I don't want to do the inner child work. I hate my inner child. And then, the first thing we tell them is, of course you do. That's, anytime your inner child holds that much pain, you're gonna hate them. You're gonna be scared of them. You're gonna be avoiding them. It's like, that's perfectly normal, and that's what we expect. It's because it's scary.
Yeah, this brings up an interesting philosophical discussion, because it goes to this issue about, is consciousness horizontal or vertical? And it's very interesting, because I think what you're suggesting, which I also believe to be true, is it's more horizontal. It's not like that there's a past that I tap into. It's like all of these different parts of me exist now, some of which I give myself access to, permission to. There's others that I hold off over here and keep on this part of the shelf that I don't want to, I don't want to go over there. Right. And yet there's energy there. It's not like that the energy is not there. There's energy on all these things that I've got on this level of consciousness. When I start to open up some of these areas that I've been reluctant to, for various reasons, and
or you didn't know exist, and reluctance, you didn't even know.
Or I didn't want to know. I think there's some of this stuff that I know for me today that like that pain with my dad was so great. It was there. I didn't want to know it, but part of not wanting to know it, it's not that was a bad thing. It was like I wasn't ready to deal with it yet. I did not have the either support in my life around me and or the maturity to be able to embrace what that would mean.
Right, exactly.
So, that's why you and I say to call somebody resistant doesn't make any sense, because we're saying that they're not wanting to do that is something wrong with them. But maybe my not dealing with that was the right thing until I was in the right place.
Well, we actually make that assumption.
We do make that assumption.
If you're resisting it, it's like, then it doesn't mean it's good for you and you need to keep doing it. It's like, but it's if you're doing the time travel with the inner child, one of the things I tell people to first time you get a chance to speak to your inner child, one of the things you say is, I'm sorry I didn't help you back then, but I didn't exist back then. And, and I'm here now. And I love your, the philosophical part of the horizontal versus vertical, because that really makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah,
Because
really
now,
does. You and I really embrace this horizontal model,
Mhm.
right? I mean, we see everything along this continuum here of things I'm aware of, things I'm not aware of, and we
Mhm.
just put it all on this thing, and that's where I think we can move in and out so wonderfully with clients in terms of helping them access these different parts of themselves that also exist, like you say, on this
Mhm.
horizontal plane that we're on.
Yeah, you know, that goes to the whole intrapersonal process that I've focused so much of my work on is the idea that, you know, the very beginning of my first book, a page that just says, before we are one, we are many. You know, and I've said to you before, I don't think I knew what that meant when I wrote it, but I put it in the book, and I look at it now and go like, yeah. I've had a psychologist one time at one of my training workshops when I was describing the intrapersonal process that I use with clients, and he said he said he said you're fragmenting your clients' personalities. Now I tell that story because I like my comeback, which was, yeah, but that's good for business. You know, and everybody in the room thought that was funny except for him. But the other thing is he said you're making everybody into a multiple personality disorder. I said, no, I'm helping people see that they're multiple personality, but it's not a disorder. You know, and we're not talking about the same thing as a dissociative disorder here. We're talking about the fact that the nature of consciousness is multiple, not singular. And the idea that what you're talking about, and people and it is new to a lot of people who first come to see us, is that we're going to say, no, we're not going to see you as just a singular being that is, you know, and these binary things, are you good or are you bad, you know, are you smart or are you dumb, or any of those things. It's like, no, we're all a lot more complicated than that. And that has to be evaluated if we're looking into our history.
When it comes to self-forgiveness, how much of it is just enough time passes that you just become exhausted with holding in your gut the resentment and disappointment in past deeds or past slights? I would like to be able to do more investigation at some point and, you know, putting the past in its place. But until then, I think just trying to get out from under it by any means necessary.
I wrote my first book I wrote with New Harbinger Publication was called Self-Forgiveness Handbook, and it's I'll send you a copy of it and see if it's useful to you. But I really appreciate your point that you made, which is about exhaustion, because I really do believe a lot of healing happens at the points of exhaustion, not at points of great wisdom and insight. But it's like, I mean, the simplest way I put that is, you know, anybody who understands, you know, just basic codependency, where we're just giving our power away and we're doing things for other people, letting other people to kind of define us and stuff. When we make breaks from that kind of thinking, it's not because we become so smart. It's because we get so damn tired. We're too tired to be codependent that day. And so we say, fuck it. And we don't do it. And then the world doesn't come to an end. And then we look at it and go like, you know what? I didn't bend over backwards that time. And it's still okay. Just little hints. These are just clues. That's why I think I like the word investigation, because we're just picking up these little clues with that stuff. So I think a lot of it does come from. I don't think time heals the wound. I think that exhaustion does play a part of it, where we say, maybe I'm tired enough of this to go ahead and put it down. Yeah. Did you ever see the movie The Mission with Jeremy Irons and
No, but it's got a
Robert De Niro?
fantastic poster. I keep looking at the poster of De
wait till
Niro holding a sword, and I'm like, I must see this film.
Wait till you hear the music. I mean, my God, I'm talking about the music, and I have goosebumps. It's like, it is such. I used it in so many of my workshops. It's like, but it's a beautiful movie. It's a hard movie, but it's a beautiful movie. But I'll just recommend the movie to people and say there's a thing and De Niro is the one who is quite literally carrying his shit straight up a cliff, because he has to do that according to his own belief system, and he doesn't know that he can let it go. And at one point, Jeremy Irons comes along with his sword and just chops that rope and lets that stuff fall away. and De Niro didn't know he could do that, and didn't know it was okay. So it's a beautiful movie. People should see it. But that's what that stuff is about. Is it's about getting to a place where you're ready to let go. That doesn't mean you're clear on it at the time. You know, I always want people to know when I'm telling a story about any of this stuff with looking at my history, doing the work in these therapy sessions. I'm telling those stories with benefit of hindsight. You know, it's like I couldn't have told you that story at the time. I wouldn't, when I'm in the fetal position with crying and snotting everywhere. I have no idea that I'm in an important moment of my life.
Right.
I don't know that at the time. I just know I'm hurting. So be kind to yourself, everybody, when you're doing this work. It's like because sometimes what it just feels like is it's just hard and it hurts.
We're saying that the fact that you think the issues are in the past is a myth.
Mm-hmm.
They're not in the past. They're right here with you now.
They have a story. They have an origin story in the past.
They have an origin story, but they're with you right now. And that's really good news, because that means that you have a lot to do with how they become integrated into your experiences today.
You have choice.
You have choices, and that doesn't mean those are readily available until you start to do the work, until you start to now understand how that's a part of your present, and have the what I would call start to create a new relationship with those experiences.
Yes.
Right? To start creating, you could say, a new narrative, whatever you want to however you want to think about it. And in our second part of this show, which will be next time, we'll talk about how do you create that new narrative. But the point I really want to establish, because I've even learned something from this talk today. It's clarified my thinking about it. It's all right here, right now. It is about starting right here.
Right here.
And it's all with you right here, right now. And that means that you and I can find freedom from some of these things, because our freedom is not determined by what happened to us, but by what we do with it right now.
Yeah. And I want to say this too, because this is quite a cliffhanger for people who are really wanting to work with this stuff, to say in a week we'll talk about sort of how you get where you want to go. But what I would say about that too is that understand also that whatever you have done, what you have chosen, whether you think of it as a conscious choice or not, and you alluded to this earlier, whatever you've done to survive and to be okay, and to what I refer to when I'm talking about myself is I pass for sane, is to be able to do that is I did good. I mean, the other thing I tell people to do when they first meet their inner child is congratulate the little one. You did that without somebody telling you how to do it. You didn't have any of our wonderful books to read. It's like you figured this shit out. And thank you, by the way, for doing that. Because you did that, I'm still here.
It's so amazing that there's this author that I'm just starting to get into, and I only can understand about 50% of what I'm reading, but his name is Kurt Goldstein. And he was a neurologist. He wrote a book called The Organism. He lived from 1878 to 1965. And he worked with a lot of soldiers from World War I who came back from the war with a lot of brain trauma. He was very interested in trying to understand what was going on with these folks. And it's so interesting, the conclusions he drew. So his first book, that was written in 1934. And it's amazing the insights that this man has into what you're talking about right here. He says, I don't believe there's such a thing as pathology. This is a neurologist. He says,
wow.
He says, it would mean that somehow people have now that they're in a state of being that is not normal. he says, every reaction the organism has to some challenge that it is having is a normal
It's
reaction.
normal. Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful.
And he says, we've got to stop thinking about disease states and start to think about, how is this person now responding to this particular issue that they're confronting in their life? And let's just try to understand their response to it.
Yep.
Is that they're really trying to figure this thing out in whatever way is possible from them. This guy had this in 1930s. He was seeing this.
That's right.
You know, Kurt, one of my favorite authors, Oliver Sacks, writes the foreword to this book, and he says, this man's insights, I mean, we need to listen to him. Mm-hmm. There is so much wisdom is what he is saying that we possess, and that we don't honor ourselves enough to see who we really are. And it's just everything that you said, Tom, is that it's like to think of that anything is a deviation from what we should be is really barking up the wrong tree.
Well, and you and I've said this before, that we share the observation that what we do for a living, far more than anything else, is help people see that they're not crazy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we're not, you know, people tell us these shameful things or things they think they're waiting for a reaction. It's my favorite part of the job by far. It's like where you're sitting there going like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's like, yeah, I did that 3 times last week. You know, it's like it's such a relief when you find out that you're not, you know, that you're not sick and I mean, it's hard to accept. You got to work at that. But I love Oliver Sacks, by the way. So we have that in common. And I'm going to check out Kurt Goldstein. And I love anybody who can admit that they can only understand 50%. Because
I might even be overstating it.
Who's Dan? What's Dan Siegel?
Yes.
Neurologist, therapist. I love Dan. He is so good at describing these things. I have sat through many of his presentations, and it's like he makes me understand why therapy works, because he describes this neurologically. I understand it while he's saying it. I get it, and I come out of that talk, and I couldn't explain it to somebody if I try.
Yeah, if your life depended on it.
It's like, but he can do it, and I get it when he does it, but I don't know how to do it, and I love to challenge myself that way. That's great.
No, you'll get that if you get this book. They released it in '95, and there's some incredible gems involved in it that I've been picking up. And, you know, even when I just described it now, I think I'm starting to understand more of it than I thought I understood. I mean,
Richard Bach, you know, in his book Illusion says, you teach best what you most need to learn.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that line. It's
a good one.
Yeah. He's a true nutshell master.
Yes. Well, this has been a great show, and I'm looking forward to the second show. And now I'm thinking about the John Lennon shirt you were talking about at the beginning. Mm-hmm. What's it called?
Worn Free.
Worn Free. And I was looking at the shirts in there, and there's the Lennon shirt popped out to me, and now it has even more meaning. So I'm going to be getting after it. It says, "You are here.
Mm-hmm.
You are here." That's what we're talking about. All of you is right here. Mm-hmm. The sum total of your experience is right here, and your creation of who you are becoming is right here, right now. You are here, and
you have access to it all. Yeah.
Great show, guys.
Wonderful to see you both.
Peace and love. See you next week.
It's a spiral, not a circle. Goes round, round, round. Look for solutions. Be your own friend. Never say never in either direction. Look in the mirror, but trust the reflection. Start right here. That's where it starts.